Hey everyone, it's Dan again, back with another video, this time on crop rotations and successional planting. These are two things that are interrelated, and we're just going to discuss them briefly. So everybody at the urban farm system rotates their crops, and we do that because plants in the same family use the same nutrients. So if you keep the same family in the same place season after season, you can deplete the soil, and you are also kind of inviting pests that prey on those specific plants to come to them and to cause a problem in that regard as well. This is something it's a common practice in all agriculture. It's something that we all practice at our sites. Successional planting it's something that can be done seasonally or within a season. And it's basically just you're carefully choosing which plants follow which. And that is important because some plants are what are called heavy feeders, whereas others are called soil builders. A heavy feeder, to kind of back up a little bit, the main nutrients that plants take up from the soil are nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium, or NPK. You would see that on your fertilizer or compost bags. Typically when we're talking about heavy feeders, we're talking about plant species that use a lot of nitrogen, although there are exceptions. Some use more of the other nutrients. And this includes stuff like spinach, which is what we're looking at here, brassicas, so those are like kale and cabbage, solanaceae, which is the tomato family, tomato, pepper, and eggplant, squash as well, and there are several more. And these plants, since they're all popular and they all use a lot of nutrients, when we are planning what to plant after them, we want to give that some extra consideration, because it makes sense to plant something that builds the soil after that. These are also called nitrogen fixers, plants that bring nutrients up from further in the soil column over time. And legumes are my favorite example, and beans are the most common thing you're going to see from the legume family. And those go really well with planting after a heavy feeding plant because they are a soil building plant. The only plant you wouldn't want to plant beans after is onions, because onions contain a compound that can hinder the growth of leguminous plants. So since the spinach is a heavy feeder, and I've kind of been harvesting it, I'm going to just take all of the leaves and remove that. I'll do the same with this one. The spinach is also, it's a plant that is an early season plant, so it'll be mature early, which means that in the succession planting in this case, you can get multiple harvests out of the same space of different plants in one season. And that's something we really like to do since we're often gardening in small spaces. And now we're going to replace it with beans, which will give us a harvest all summer. A few weeks from now, or a couple weeks from now, I'll harvest the rest of the spinach, or before it bolts basically, and I'll follow that with beans as well, so we'll get multiple harvests of beans as well. So these will mature first, and then the other two will mature after that. So I have, these are dragon's tongue bush beans, and I'm just going to push them down an inch. And that's it. That's a succession planting, a successional harvest, a rotation, and a succession planting all in one season. And that'll help us build that soil back up after the spinach, which has used a lot of nitrogen, and it'll avoid diseases and pests if I were to plant, like if I were to plant spinach again, for instance, which I wouldn't do in this case. So as always, stay safe, and I'll be back with some more helpful tips on how to maximize your small garden space going through the season.